Hi, guys. It is time for Teacher Tips 2.2 for different types of clauses this week. Not Santa Claus. We're talking independent and dependent clauses. So, last week you learned what a clause was. It has a subject and a verb, and it can stand alone as a sentence if it makes sense. So, that's where our two definitions come in today. So, our first one is an independent clause contains a subject, a verb, and the complete thought. It can stand alone as a sentence. Dependent, again, it has a subject and a verb, but it can't stand alone as a sentence because it doesn't contain a complete thought. It can't stand alone as a sentence. And if you leave that dependent clause by itself, in formal writing, remember that's an error. So I have this little slideshow to show you what I mean by dependent and independent clauses. So let's start. Okay, I started off as a dependent clause. So I depended on my parents. I was dependent on them. I was a human. I was, this person, but I was dependent on them. I needed someone else to keep me alive. Then I became independent. I got married. I was off on my own. I didn't need my parents anymore. I was an independent clause. I had a subject and a verb. I was a complete person, a complete thought. I was independent. Well, guess what? We had three little dependent clauses: Ben, Carrie, and Mary Jo. And they were our dependent clauses. They depended on us. So they were, again, complete humans, subject, verb, but they didn't have a complete thought. They couldn't stand alone. So they depended on us. And what happens if you leave a dependent clause by itself? Holy smokes, you created an error. It's a fragment. Look at those boys covered in mud and leaves. And this is Cousin Chase. And you can stick two fragments together and they're still going to be fragments. It's still an error. You can't leave dependent clauses alone. Next, our little dependent clauses became independent clauses. Here they are, all married. They are now independent of us. They are clauses the whole way through, from birth until now. They are still clauses. Guess what? My independent clauses have now created little dependent clauses. We have two little granddaughters there. And so now they're dependent. Again, they must be with the independent clause. So the moms are the independent clauses and they take care of the dependent clauses. So maybe that'll help you remember dependent and independent. Here is just the review vocabulary from last week: phrase, clause, fragment. So hopefully we've just gone over those. And here are some more examples in sentences. So an independent clause, I have a subject, a verb. It makes sense by itself. It can stand alone as a sentence. So Joe is tired of listening to John's complaints. I have a subject, Joe. I have a verb phrase here, is tired, helping verb, action verb. So there's my verb. And it's a complete thought. It makes sense. So it is an independent clause. Joe is tired of listening to John's complaints. Perfectly fine, independent. Now I get those dependent clauses. Since snow is falling, I will make a snowman. Notice I have a subject and a verb. Snow is falling. There's my verb phrase there. But I've got this word since in front of it, which feels like there's more information that has to be had. It's dependent. It needs something else. So you have to stick an independent clause with it in order to make it correct. So I stuck, I will make a snowman. That's independent, has a subject and verb, I will make. Stick it with the dependent clause, voila! We now have a perfectly fine sentence. Notice I can switch them around. I can put the independent first and the dependent second. I will make a snowman since snow is falling. I switch them around and all I do is I take out that comma because I started with the independent. Since it's independent, it doesn't need the comma. It doesn't need anything. I could stop it right there. I will make a snowman. Voila. So just remember, independent all by itself, dependent needs the independent to help it. Hope that helps.